Alex, can you please tell me what your thoughts are around, the relationship between orthopedic spine and neurosurgery spine, and then maybe talk a little bit about the mix of providers on the non-operative side and how they fit into the equation of providing spine care?
Sure, Mike. I feel this is different in every situation across the country. However, the Rothman Institute's Orthopaedic Spine and Jefferson Neurospine have worked together for over 30 years. I actually have an appointment in the neurosurgery department, and the neurospine residents and fellows work very closely with our team in ortho spine. Regarding non-operative spine faculty, in our practice, the non-operative spine faculty, who are all physiatrists, play a big part in conservative treatment for spine patients. A significant number of patients with back pain and other spine disorders can be treated successfully through injections and physical medicine and rehabilitation. At the Rothman Institute, we have 12 spine surgeons and 22 physiatrists, which represent an almost 2-to-1 ratio. In addition, each of the spine surgeons utilizes a physician assistant who can treat patients independently to assist with many of the follow-up patients within the spine service. At the Rothman Institute, we take a very conservative approach regarding spine surgery. Although many patients may feel like they want surgery, the indications for surgery must be there. I spend a significant amount of my time discussing this with patients who sometimes get very frustrated. However, I know that in many instances, spine surgery may well make things worse in the long run.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's certainly interesting. I know many of us are trying to understand how those services would fit together in the delivery of spine care, so that's helpful. With regard to the way that you're leading growth at Rothman Institute, I think people who know Rothman Institute, if they had to describe it in 3 words, growth would definitely be one of those. I'd like to hear your thoughts on growth, but also specifically as a president of Rothman Institute, I know it was important to you to pursue your MBA, and this is a degree that a number of people, especially the newer generation of clinicians coming up, are considering getting. So I'd like for you, please, Alice, to talk about your approach to growth as president of Rothman Institute, as well as why you chose to pursue your MBA.
Sure. Mike, historically, many health institutions have been led on the administrative side by non-medical personnel, those individuals with business degrees, MBAs, Masters in Health Administration, and so forth. Over the last 10 years, you have seen a significant number of physicians obtaining their MBA and being more active in the management role of their respective organizations. The business of medicine has gotten more sophisticated and complicated over the years, and I felt that it was extremely important for me to have a better understanding of the business side of healthcare and be able to combine it with my clinical background. The Rothman Institute has always been physician-driven with the strong support of our administrative team, and I felt by me getting an MBA and having a better understanding of the business and strategic side of healthcare, that has allowed the Rothman Institute as an organization to work more closely with the administrative team and be more productive and effective as a whole. Regarding approaches to growth markets, over the past 10 years, we've seen significant consolidation and affiliation across the country with both health systems and providers, and this has been accelerated over the last 5 years with the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Growth over the years has allowed us to provide significant economies of scale and the financial ability to invest in our infrastructure, such as technology, management, and so forth, which we feel will be necessary for the future success of our organization. We select markets to grow in which we feel either have a gap in the musculoskeletal services or that an alignment with the health system will be critical for our success in the future. Many of the healthcare systems and other structures, such as IPAs, CINs, ACOs, etc., are increasingly tightened up in their leakage of patients out of the system. If there is a major consolidation or affiliation with health systems and or acquisitions of large primary care physicians, and we are not in that network, we can lose a significant patient base. Our growth strategy is to seek out specific markets with good population density and expand within that market to a broader base to capture not only primary service areas, but secondary service areas as well. Our growth strategy is both organic growth as well as acquisition and affiliation growth. Organic growth strategies primarily focus on filling in appropriate specialty positions within our existing offices as they grow. The acquisition or affiliation growth typically represents movements into new markets that we think are critical for our success. With the acquisitions, we're very careful in selecting our partners to ensure that the quality of the group, as well as their overall philosophy, is consistent with the Rothman Institute.
Yeah, I think the growth that you've been able to lead at the Rothman Institute has been astronomical. I think especially when you look back to the 70s with the vision that Dr. Richard Rothman had originally and how this has now grown to some enterprise that's approximately $400 million in annual revenue, approaching 150 MDs, working across 20 surgical sites, doing over 50,000 surgical cases a year. I think it's clear that the Rothman Institute has got the growth approach down and is getting bigger and evolving. So it's very interesting to hear your thoughts on that. With respect to your leadership, Alex, if you had to look back or to on your tenure thus far for the past few years, what's the most valuable lesson you've learned since becoming president of the Rothman Institute?
Mike, I think the most important lesson that I've learned is the ability to effectively communicate and engage both physicians and management teams in our decision making. As an organization gets larger, it is very easy to lose that connection, and over a period of time, the culture can be diluted. I spend a significant amount of my time in communicating our philosophy, strategies, and new initiatives at all levels within the organization. In addition, I spend a significant amount of my time with the CEOs and the administrative teams in the many healthcare organizations we have relationships with.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Alex, working with your administrative team. My experience working with Mike West nationally on a number of things is that I've not seen anyone like him in the space. I think he's without peer. And Michael Sheeran is another guy who just provides the Rothman Institute with this very, very strong team. So I'm sure that's a well-oiled machine. With respect to bringing on new faculty, I think this is something that many departments struggle to do in a way that they would like to do and that the new faculty would like to do, trying to optimize to find that secret formula. Can you speak to how the Rothman Institute ramps up newly hired faculty, and also what's the role of academics in teaching? Are you able to preserve that in your formula?
Mike, that's the core to the Rothman Institute. The Rothman Institute has a formal onboarding process for each physician that is hired. Once the contract is executed, an announcement goes out to the entire management team and respective service line chiefs, and that includes, foot and ankle, shoulder, spine, and so forth. Newly hired physicians are contacted by the management team, and there's a formal process utilized to ensure proper licensing and credentialing prior to the physician coming on board. Once on board, each physician meets with all the major departments such as the business office, call center, human resources, and senior management, all to obtain a good understanding of how the organization works and the locations where they will be participating. Our main focus is academics and teaching, and therefore all new hires meet with the research department looking for opportunities for research in their respective field as they ramp up during the associate physician phase of their career. Most people will eventually go on to become a full partner. We have minimum academic requirements in order to become a full shareholder, and we encourage newly hired physicians to spend any free time during the ramp-up period focusing on how they can engage themselves in the research activities of the organization. We have a robust clinical research team with approximately 60 staff and management team members that each new physician meets with and helps them identify potential areas of research activities. Some of the surgeons, when they come on, will only do clinical for 3 days a week or 4 days a week initially. Their income is less, but it gives them an opportunity to develop an interest in research and develop a theme so they can get their research going. Because as you know, 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line, it becomes more difficult to find time for research. So this is a great way for a physician to stay engaged in research activities.
Certainly does, and I agree with you there. And I think the thing that really keeps the academic engaged is having time to be able to be an academic. I think one of the things that I've seen over the years, Alex, is that, there is a gap between the academic faculty salary and the private practice salary. But I think when that gap gets greater than 25% or so in total compensation, the wheels begin to shake, especially if the academic is not allowed to pursue those academics that they went into and that sort of thing. And it becomes an equation that's difficult to maintain if there isn't a commitment from the top, as it sounds like you have, to really preserve the academic interest of the enterprise. So that's great that you're doing that. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you handle citizenship? With an organization this large and growing, it must be difficult, but I imagine that you've got a way that you really manage citizenship and making sure that everybody's headed in the right direction and acting accordingly.
Mike, as you've heard before, people say that culture trumps strategy all the time. We take citizenship very seriously at the Rothman Institute. Citizenship is one of the 3 requirements in order to become a shareholder. We really look at our values of respect, integrity, innovation, excellence, trust, and compassion to evaluate the citizenships of anyone who wishes to become part of our team. In order to become a shareholder, each candidate is required to receive 2 letters of recommendation, one from their service chief and another shareholder they work with on a consistent basis. Each associate is brought up in front of the entire shareholder group for discussion and vote. In addition, we have a conduct committee that objectively evaluates and assesses complaints of conduct and citizenship of all of our physicians. We take this very seriously and set the bar high as it relates to good citizenship. You can be a physician that has a high clinical outcome, high clinical productivity, and you can publish a lot of research. But if you're not a team player and you don't buy into the culture, you will probably not become a shareholder at our institution. So I think it's probably the most important thing. Get them to understand the culture, to buy into the culture, and also to spread the culture.
For sure. Could not agree with that more. As we look forward into the future, Alex, and we're looking at the academic model, and this is something that you touched upon previously with regard to how important it is that you really are fostering new faculty, mentoring them in that direction. Can you tell me what your thoughts are about how the business model of academic orthopedics might look like in 10 years? How might this evolve?
Well, in this interview, Mike, you brought up a really interesting point, that if the gap between income for an academic and a private physician grows bigger than 25%, the wheels may come off, and I agree totally. I feel personally over the next 10 to 15 years, education of the medical students, residents, and fellows will continue to play a major role in the U.S. healthcare system. With a significantly increasing and aging population base, there will continue to be a shortage of qualified physicians practicing in the marketplace, and it's our responsibility to continuously evaluate innovative ways to close a gap on the shortage of physicians, and also get the right physician in the right job on our team. With the significant pressures from insurance companies and employers to decrease costs, academic medical centers will have to be very diligent and innovative in maintaining their relevance from the healthcare cost standpoint, while maintaining value within their academic training programs. As you know, most academic medical centers are perceived as high-cost entities, and many health insurance companies have designed their plans to steer away from high-cost centers, or certainly make it more costly for individual patients through out-of-pocket costs. The academic medical centers will have to continue to balance the academic and teaching side with efficiency and cost-effective measures necessary to be competitive in the marketplace. The Rothman Institute has developed a hybrid model, as we are a private practice. However, we are the academic and teaching arm for the orthopedic service line for Jefferson University Hospital. Now that university system or enterprise is over almost $6 billion in total. This hybrid model allows the benefits of private practice regarding the ability to develop strategies on a broader basis than the typical academic medical center. However, it includes all the benefits of teaching and clinical and basic science research of an academic medical center.
That's very interesting. It's something I know that the chief administrative officers are staying up late at night thinking about, how to preserve the academic orthopedic model, trying to find a way. And I think that what's happening, as far as I'm seeing, is that people are flexing their muscles more and more in an entrepreneurial way to try to find a mechanism for developing additional slices of the revenue portfolio while trying to preserve what we can out of the clinical receipts. When you look at the competition in the market, I have to say, when I look at it nationally, it seems like Massachusetts, New York City, and I would say Philadelphia are as strong as any market with the quality of the academic orthopedic programs and the leadership of those places. I really love Philadelphia with the influence that the Rothman Institute has had on the University of Pennsylvania, and certainly in interest of disclosure, one of my best friends, Dr. Scott Levin, the chair of the University of Pennsylvania, I think has really lifted that program up. And I would say to a certain extent, this is, I think, a result of the strength of the Rothman Institute program that's also in Philadelphia. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you perceive competition in the market, and maybe even, I'm going to just throw this out there, has there ever been thought about merging or doing more with University of Pennsylvania Orthopedics?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Scott. Scott Levin is a superstar. He's board certified in both plastic surgery and orthopedic surgery. I really enjoy his presence. He really adds a very strong academic bent to any meeting. He's got great insight. And when I speak to the faculty member at the University of Pennsylvania, they love him, they admire him, they respect him, and they'll follow Scott wherever he takes them. So Philadelphia is rich, as you know, with academic medical centers, most importantly, the University of Pennsylvania. And I think with all of us together going to academic meetings once a month at the Philadelphia Orthopaedic Society, it makes us all stronger in terms of our dedication to research and academics. In the end, competition is good, and it will, over time, weed out the weaker organizations and providers and accelerate the growth of more competitive and stronger providers. This competition ultimately provides for better services to consumers within the markets we occupy. We very much enjoy the competitive nature with the University of Pennsylvania and often work together in a collaborative manner in the marketplace. Scott and I are now hosting together an AOA meeting in September, and I'm going to learn from him, and hopefully he'll learn from me. Although we haven't had any formal discussions for any type of merger, it is hard to tell what the market conditions will look like 5 to 10 years down the line, and I would never be against any type of innovative merger in the future.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. And I think even bridging back to the last response that you provided about the business model of academic orthopedics, I'm actually a little bit surprised that we have not seen more market consolidation, not only with hospitals and their health systems, but in orthopedic practices. I thought, especially when the ACO was introduced, I thought that would start getting groups that were smaller to consolidate, to be merged into larger academic organizations, more so than what we've seen. But, I guess we'll just see how this plays out in years to come. Well, before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you a question. I like to take a challenge from somebody to really look at a business problem and to focus on it. And it's an opportunity for me to do a few things. One of them is to really look at some of our top leaders in the AOC and to get them engaged. And I'm probably going to work with some corporations outside of the academic space to bring their expertise to the table and to get together, because I think that there's a lot of overlapping interests that could play out to the betterment of not only the patient care, but the way the efficiency of the care that's delivered, the costs of the care, the margins that are involved for everybody, if we just roll up our sleeves and work together. I'm wondering if you might be able to give me your thoughts about the role of the AOC going forward, and really to challenge me with an issue in spine or something to look at where we can really sink our teeth into it and try to develop a best practice or to get more information around a certain area.
Well, Michael, the more I get to know you, the more impressed I am. Just today, during this interview, before we got down into the specific questions, I think that myself as a chairman and others in academic medicine can really follow your lead in understanding the marketplace better. You and I spoke today before this interview about how can we get together and bring orthopedics and neurosurgeons together. How can we do that in an academic center? And your experience in working with other academic medical centers is a breath of fresh air. I've learned a lot, and hopefully I'll continue to pick your brain in the future. So I want to commend you and the other officers for the excellent work that the AOC has done over the years. Your ability to reach out to 75 musculoskeletal academic departments throughout the country and organize them in a fashion that provides education, networking, collaboration, and problem solving is to be commended. Although I've not attended personally any AOC meetings, our CEO, Mike West, and our Senior Vice President, Michael Sheeran, have had nothing but outstanding things to say about the work of the AOC. The ability to try new ideas and solve problems with so many academic departments across the country provides significant opportunities for improvement in each one of the respective departments. Regarding specific innovative projects in spine, I believe, and this is something that I'm working on, is that there's a future in robotics, which is an interesting thing. I haven't really been pulled into the other trends that I've seen: implants, biologics, stem cells, and navigation. But I think robotics may be the first in spine surgery where we'll see the cost curve bend and our ability to deliver safer care more efficiently will happen. It would be interesting to provide a survey on how other academic departments are addressing innovative ways to use robotics in the future. In addition, we are seeing a significant shift of historically in the past spine cases that have been done in an inpatient setting moving to an outpatient setting. It'd be interesting to see what models are being developed throughout the country in identifying safe workflows for outpatient surgery and what cases are currently being performed in these facilities. Included in the survey should be what safety measures and protocols are utilized differently in an ASC versus an inpatient hospital setting. So I think with that and things that you and I have talked about, maybe even touring, getting a group of us together to go to different centers that are exploring different innovative business models will be a great service that you can continue to provide to your academic partners.
I'd love to do that. That's a great challenge, and that's certainly a provocative, offer, and one I'll definitely consider. I'd like to ask you one more question before we bring this to a wrap. Today is Easter Sunday. It's Sunday, it's Easter, and Alex Vaccaro is still working, doing this interview, trying to help the rest of us to learn some principles that have worked for you personally, that have worked for Rothman Institute, and I appreciate that. Your work effort is prolific. You're known for having your administrative meetings at 5 in the morning with Mike West. You're known for doing 10 to 12 cases a week when most will do about 4. And yet you're the president of what I think is one of the largest, certainly one of the most respected orthopedic organizations in the country. So the question is, how in the world do you achieve work balance? How are you maintaining some sort of life outside of work? I remember talking to Regis O'Keefe in his new role at WashU and interviewing him, and certainly he's a tremendous leader for the academic orthopedic space, not only in research but just general leadership. And Regis would tell me that he's got a workout regimen that he never misses. He gets up at 4 a.m. and does some workouts, and this sort of thing. He's very committed to his family and his children. How are you doing this, Alex? How are you finding time to find work balance? What's your formula for success?
Well, first of all, Mike, you're flattering, and thank you for the compliments. But it's funny. I didn't know that about Regis, but I wake up every morning at 4. And I hit the gym in my house at 4:30. Now, I have a bad knee from football, so I can't run anymore. So I either do the elliptical or I do the bike, and I do it for 50 minutes every day. Now, I'm sort of a nerd, so I'll knock off my email in my cycle desk, and I'm embarrassed to say that on tape, on my cycle desk. So I'll sort of get back into what's going on. And then I take a shower, I get in the car, and I begin my 5 a.m. meeting with Michael West, who's more of a workaholic than you and I will ever be. Then it comes back to I try to get everything wrapped up, and I try to be home for dinner every night, and I have a loving, supporting wife and a great extended family. I have 6 kids in my family. My wife has a large family in terms of relatives, so we do a lot of things together. So if I can be done early, go to dinner, and if I have a business dinner to make, it always starts at 7:30 at night, which sounds crazy also, but I'm home for dinner from 6 to 7:30, and then I'll go out. And remember, only spend 1 hour at a dinner meeting, never more than an hour, and go to bed by 9 o'clock at night, and you can be productive also.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time and the wisdom. I think that this is going to be a very interesting seminar series, and I'm honored that you agreed to be the inaugural person. Thank you very much, Dr. Alex Vaccaro, President of Rothman Institute.